Hello, everyone, and welcome back to an all-new episode of the Financial Confessions, for which I am extremely excited because it's not every day that on this show we get to have someone whose content I watch so regularly. As you guys know, or perhaps maybe you don't, we've had a few other YouTubers on this channel whose content that I like to watch, often more in sort of the social political commentary genre, like people like Big Joel and Tiffany Ferg. And I love speaking to them as well, but it's been a while that we haven't had someone in a category that is a bit removed from sort of the day-to-day nitty-gritty of personal finance, but which, as we've discussed before heavily on this channel, impacts us financially, especially as women, in a massive way. I'm talking specifically about beauty norms, beauty standards, and the entire world and increasing industrial complex of cosmetic procedures. Some of the most popular content that we've done on our channel in the past year has been about this phenomenon. I did a video about how celebrities are gaslighting us about beauty, as well as how they all manage to look so young, and no, it's not because they're unproblematic. I did a video about the rise of Instagram face, and we also, in our new podcast series, Too Good to Be True, had our hosts Ryan and Julia dive into the often dark world of essentially counterfeit or cheap or shoddily done cosmetic procedures, which are increasingly the norm as people want these effects but aren't necessarily able to afford what it really costs. Now, in the case of that episode of Too Good to Be True, our host Ryan went into detailed description of the many procedures that he's had done over the past few years, which totaled in the tens of thousands of dollars and necessitated months of arduous recovery. And I've also been honest about various things that I've had done, mostly dermatological stuff and often to do with my ongoing, never-ending battle with my rosacea and acne. So it's important to note that at TFD, we never have and continue to not have judgments about procedures that you may deem worthy. We, of course, want you to make sure that they're financially viable for you and that you're not cutting corners in a way that could possibly damage you. But where I do take a lot of issue is back to that initial comment about celebrities, influencers, and the wealthy effectively gaslighting us all about what is actually necessary to maintain these unbelievable aesthetics. It's not surprising that someone who was not only born genetically beautiful and also has limitless access to millions of dollars and a team of specialists to help monitor their diet, their exercise, their dermatology, their cosmetic procedures, and everything else would manage to be beautiful well into older age. But it is surprising the extent to which it's still normalized to outright lie about these things. And where that often does become incredibly insidious is when you consider the many young, impressionable people who are following these celebrities and influencers who take their word for it and believe that if they're not able to achieve the same results, it's because something's wrong with them. My guest today is a YouTuber who I've watched extensively, and not only whose content I enjoy, but whose mission I really appreciate. Her platform is all about destigmatizing and understanding the reality of these cosmetic procedures in a way that's judgment-free, but is also realistic about what actually goes on behind the scenes, so we can stop tricking ourselves into thinking that we're not seeing what we're actually seeing when we open up a magazine or Instagram. So without further ado, I'd love to welcome my guest, YouTuber Lori Hill.
Hi, it's so nice to be here.
Hi, it's so nice to have you. Welcome. So for anyone listening or watching who may not be familiar with your content, could you just quickly summarize it for us?
Yeah, so basically my content is all about revealing celebrity plastic surgery and possible cosmetic procedures for people whose eyes are less attuned to different changes on the face. A lot of times people will see a celebrity or somebody in the public eye and think something's changed about them, but they don't really realize or know what it is. Because I have a kind of a extensive background in plastic surgery research, I can tell generally if the change came from plastic surgery or from aging or less likely from puberty. So my goal is just to kind of lift the veil, as I say on my channel, of secrecy surrounding plastic surgery in the entertainment industry so that people just stop comparing themselves to celebrities.
It's interesting that you say puberty because it's something that's pretty new is the extent to which a lot of these procedures are happening on effectively children who aren't finished developing. Like, obviously, we can think of really clear examples like Kylie Jenner and Bella Hadid, like girls essentially who went through a lot of changes before their face was ever even able to fully develop. And I'm interested to where you kind of what your opinion is about the ethics of these types of procedures on developing children.
Oh my gosh, it's so hard because I know that surgeons, doctors will make kind of a judgment call at the point at which, like, it's a very individualized thing. Because I know this for a fact because I have surgeons as friends, some of them, and they say it just depends on each individual circumstance. Like, sometimes they'll get a teenager that comes in and they're just ruthlessly bullied, and they'll make, about one facial feature, like a nose. It's generally a nose. And yeah, they'll do a rhinoplasty on that patient. But it's not, I feel like they don't make the decision. It's not a generalized sort of decision that's made. It's case by case basis. I don't want to actually comment on the ethics of it just because each case is so different.
Yeah.
I think, though, that if it's a bunch of different procedures on the same patient, I would like them to question it.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, I think that there's definitely like something that we've talked about in some of the videos we've done is the way that like class and culture really impact what we deem as being acceptable versus not acceptable when it comes to alterations. Like many American teenagers, including myself, have had like extensive cosmetic orthodontics as teenagers. Like I went through a ton of orthodontic stuff, didn't wear my retainer, so they shifted. But like a lot of that was not necessary for like a lot of it was for aesthetic reasons. And you mentioned nose jobs. Like it was very common in my hometown, which was very affluent. I was not like affluent, but a lot of people were. And like a lot of the very affluent girls in my hometown would get nose jobs as graduation gifts before going off to college. That was extremely common. And I think, one of the issues that I have with the children thing in particular is like if someone had, because I don't have like a dainty ski slope nose, and I didn't like it as a child. It wasn't like something that I was objectively bullied over, but it was something that I didn't like. And if someone had come up to me at that age and been like, would you like a free nose job? I for sure would have gotten a nose job. And I don't know, I mean, and who knows how that would have ended up working out over the years, but I do think that like I probably wasn't in the greatest place. Like I'm glad I didn't get a tattoo at 18, because what I would have wanted at 18 probably wouldn't have been representative of me today. So I do think that there's probably benefit in certain cases, like waiting until that child is a bit out of like the extreme insecurity of high school to make those decisions.
I agree with you. Also, too, for better results, it's better to wait because once growth has stabilized, especially the nose, it will turn out better. I think there's a few, because I don't want to say for sure, but there's a few celebrity examples where there is speculation that because they got their nose worked on at like 13 or 14, it collapsed. So it caused more issues. And you can't really see a collapse, just eyeball it, but I can see it. So yeah, I think for better results, it's better to wait past 18 too.
Yeah, well, I mean, your body's still developing. One of the things that I think really frustrates me in the kind of discourse we have around beauty and aging in our culture is like, and I sort of referenced it in the intro, but that whole phenomenon of being like, this is how you age when you're not problematic, First of all, there are some like absolute monsters in this world who look great in older age. Let's be clear about that. But also like people were saying it about Anne Hathaway. And I'm like, first of all, Anne Hathaway's in her 30s, but she's also like an objectively beautiful woman who's been rich and famous for 20 plus years. Like her being able to maintain a youthful, glamorous physique and appearance has nothing to do with her character. And it really, I think, we say it as a joke kind of, but I really think that mentality starts to sink into people.
Yes. I'm kind of wondering if you know where that started from. Like who said that? And then now we all kind of hear it all the time.
I don't know, but that person needs to be held to account because it has done serious. I really believe that it's done a lot of damage
It's
to people's
horrible.
perception because we'll look back at old Disney movies, right? Where like the evil person is
Yes.
ugly and has like a big nose and a long
Yes.
chin and hair growing out of their face, or whatever. And we're like, wow, it's really messed up that we represent evil as manifesting as ugliness. And yet that is the exact same logic of like, this is how you age when you're not problematic.
I was going to say the exact same thing. You know, we teach children that you shouldn't judge a book by its cover. And it's like, okay, that's completely such a bad message to say, like, if you look pretty on the outside, it must be because you're pretty on the inside. It's like, no.
No, that has nothing
not
to do with it.
true.
Our perception of what people naturally look like at different ages has been wildly warped. Like people don't genuinely know what it really means to look like, X or Y age anymore. And I would be curious kind of how you integrate normalizing our perception of aging into the way you talk about these things.
That's a really good point, and you just made me realize that I do need to analyze more older people, in particular women. I feel like, yes, people ask for men, but I just don't get as much interest in men as because of the pressures put on women in this society. So maybe I should talk more about older women and incorporate what normal aging looks like, because the people you mentioned, like I do believe they've had maintenance plastic surgery work done, because to even still look like an older version of yourself, you need to have some maintenance plastic surgery work done. It's just how skin ages. You can't. So basically, maintenance plastic surgery is things like facelifts and laser work that will help maintain you looking like yourself as you age. So that's why I believe these female celebrities have had work done, even though they're not known as like the glamorous, stunning leads. They're still having surgery done to still look like themselves.
I think also we have a really arbitrary system for what we consider to be cosmetic surgery versus not. So like, for example, I have an older woman in my life who is very adamantly one of those women, like, I'm going to age naturally. Like I'm not doing any of that stuff, but she got the surgery that like removes part of your eyelids that starts, you know what I'm saying? Like where it's like a little, just like a tiny, like they cut off excess skin from your eyelids.
A blepharoplasty.
There you go. Yeah. You can say that it's because you're not seeing as well, but like, let's be honest, a lot of times it's not because of that. It's because it's just like your makeup is starting to smudge and like it's just like not as attractive or whatever, like, and you don't feel good about it. You feel self-conscious about it. And that's totally fine. But I think people often have this need to like kind of delude themselves essentially that if it's not like literally a facelift or if it's not literally this, then they're not doing it. But it's like all of these things are still the same thing, which is just modifications to change your appearance.
Yes. And I also think that there's this whole stigma of you're not vain if you don't have plastic surgery, then that means you're not vain. But there's other ways to be vain. If I don't ever call anyone vain, but I feel like that's the society's like perception of you. If you care about the way you look, like, oh, you're vain if you get plastic surgery. But I mean, I know people who haven't had plastic surgery, but they're, getting facials, they're doing other things. They're getting eyelash extensions. They're doing all these other things. But as long as they're not having plastic surgery, they say they're not vain. So people just kind of reason it with themselves that way, I think.
Yeah. And I think vanity is one of these things that is such an unfair standard, right? Because when you think about for example, women in the public eye, like how harshly they're judged when they don't look a certain way. I think about things like, the post-baby body, where I know you've done content on how normalized it's become for women to undergo plastic surgery after giving birth to return to their pre-baby figure. And I don't even think it's necessarily the case that a lot of those women who are undergoing those procedures in the public eye, for example, are doing so out of vanity. I think a lot of it is out of self-preservation and not wanting to be like splashed across the cover of tabloids, being stigmatized for not having bounced back fast enough.
That's for sure. And although sometimes I do wonder if it's to show themselves like on Instagram and social media as having like a flat stomach just 11 weeks or less after pregnancy, because I just feel like social media is so pervasive now. I don't know, I have heard that with paparazzi, you actually have to call them out to take pictures of you. So I just wonder how much it's predatory paparazzi nowadays. Or more, maybe it's more like they do want to show themselves a little bit, like I bounced back and being known for bouncing back.
I
At
think it's
least some of
probably
them.
both.
Yeah.
Any line that you're going to draw about what is acceptable for appearance modification is always going to be arbitrary, right? Like you can't say like it's okay to wear makeup but it's not okay to get Botox, or it's okay to get Botox but it's not okay to get fillers, or and the list goes on, and even like the way you dress, the way you style your hair, all of these things, getting cosmetic, orthodontics and dentistry, all of this stuff is ultimately elective and down to personal taste. So I feel like because there's never going to be a way to firmly say, okay, this is acceptable, the only sustainable solution is that do whatever you want, but be honest about it. So I'm really interested to hear from you about, if you want to describe maybe a little bit for those who haven't watched your videos, the procedures that you've elected to have, but kind of your mindset in why you choose to have them and what benefit you feel you get from them.
Definitely, I'll go over that too. And then I also wanted to say there is kind of like a little bit of privilege, if you want to call it that, by being like, we talked about this already with celebrities being kind of born with like beautiful bone structure already. So it's a lot easier in general just for people who are born with like a lot of good traits, like good bone structure, a good nose and stuff, because then it's like they have the privilege of really not needing plastic surgery or not doing it because they don't need it, and once they get older, it's like, okay, now I'll preserve what I have. So that's also another little privilege that people who already are born with good starting off point have. So a lot of times it's those people that are saying like, oh, I would never do it, who don't need it. Nobody needs it, but oftentimes it's that person who really doesn't have anything that you would really do. Nothing sticks out for them to do, so I have talked about a lot of the procedures I've had, and I think it's important not to lie about it, in particular if you have a larger audience. If you're just kind of a regular person, not on social media, then I don't know. I don't know that you have to be, you have to tell people, I'm not so sure with that, but I think if you have an audience and there's people and young people who are going to be influenced by you, I think it's good to be honest, or at least allude to have done something. You can say, well, like if you're Kim Kardashian, you don't have to list your procedures, but you can say, you can allude, like you can say, well, I've had a little help or something, and it really doesn't cost you anything to say that. So sometimes it kills me because I'm just like, she could just do that, and I don't think it would affect the money coming in for her. If anything, I feel like people would be more endeared to her, but I don't know.
Maybe. I think the worst is the middle ground that you often get with a lot of these influencers who will admit to one or two things and pretend like, oh, they're finally coming clean and being honest about it, but conceal all the rest of the things that they did. That to me is the most frustrating, because I'm like, I don't want to see you get a press run about, coming clean about doing this when like obviously you're still being deceptive about 10 other things.
Yes, that kills me too. Yeah, you're right. That does bug me. Yes. I've had 3 major nose jobs. Like my first one was when I was a lot younger, and the surgeon who did my nose job, it didn't go well, and he did a revision, and the revision was when he really took off too much. He took out too much cartilage, and I needed to have reconstructive surgery, where they took cartilage from other places and put it in my nose. So that also can start you on a slippery slope if like 1 or 2 surgeries doesn't go well, and then you have to repair it, and then you start looking like you're obsessed with plastic surgery when really you're just trying to repair what the surgeon did.
Totally.
Yeah, and then I had more. I haven't done a video where I talk about all my surgeries because I'm waiting to do that. So I'm just going to talk about the ones I've talked about on my channel. And then I had a blepharoplasty, what your friend had. Yeah, I had that, and for me, my eyelid skin was sagging, but it didn't reach the point where it was over my eyelid. I have seen people with that problem, and yeah. It was just cosmetic, and it was hard to do my eye makeup, so I had that done. And then I also talked about 2 years ago, I had a facelift. And I feel like that surgery was really what, like, it just became so obvious. After having a facelift, it became so obvious that so many celebrities have had facelifts because it really does like stop you kind of where you're at the age you're at and make you look younger. Um, it's a game changer if you get the right surgeon.
Did you do a full facelift or like the lower?
So, a regular facelift is just a lower facelift. When people talk about like I know I hear that term a lot, full facelift. So that's like an upper facelift. No, I didn't do the upper, but to me, a full facelift is a lower facelift because they take everything from here and they move it up diagonally, and they do your neck too. So it's
Man, I'm fully. I have told my husband this like 15 times. I'm like, there's gonna come a point where I am getting a facelift. I think like when I look at like a lot of the most sort of hailed examples of much older women who look fantastic for their age, to me it seems once you learn a little bit about this and you go down the rabbit hole a little bit and research some of this stuff, it becomes so obvious that the ones who look really good and you're like, how do they look like that? They got really good facelifts. Like there's not a mystery. Like, and a lot of times people will go the other route and keep trying to maintain youth via injection, which I think often will result in an aesthetic that people now know, they recognize, they know that that's probably not the right way to go, but it's not typical for, and occasionally it can happen, but like a woman in her 50s 60s and beyond to have like a snatched neckline, like that doesn't happen. And I think a lot of people don't realize how discreet a lot of these procedures have gotten, and I wish that more people could be just like, I wish a lot of these, especially the more like kind of respected actresses and like A-list ones who will not be open about it, I'm like, you are doing such a disservice by allowing people to think that you look like that naturally.
Yeah, definitely. And so I try, and I did get like an early maintenance facelift, but having done that, now I can tell you that a lot of the facelifts I see like in Hollywood are like late 30s.
What?
I was 42 when I got it, but I feel like, I think I see more late 30s facelifts because that's kind of the time where it just depends, but you'll start to see some signs of aging late 30s. Not everyone, so I don't want people to freak out, but yeah, that's kind of when you start to see it. So if you think about it, a lot of people who make money on their looks freak out at that age and they're like, oh no, I don't want to, I don't want that to be seen on film. By the way, they can digitally alter film, and I would love to do a video on that. And they do that in movies and even some shows, but it's very expensive. So they'd rather hire the actress who looks young already. So so I can see why they're doing these procedures earlier.
Totally. And when you get these procedures, can you talk a little bit about your experience as far as like what makes you want them and then how you feel after the fact, assuming it, because you've had ones that you weren't happy with that didn't go well. Yeah. Assuming it goes well, kind of what that experience is emotionally and psychologically.
Yeah. So, I mean, with the facelift, I was like, I wanted to extend, I had just started YouTube, so I wanted to feel and look youthful. And I kind of knew I was going to get a facelift around that time, but it just kind of sped it up for me starting on YouTube. Everybody's so young, or at the time they were. And I feel like now there's more older people on there. But so I kind of knew. And then I had a surgeon who I had in mind. And then the preparation for it was really scary. The facelift was scary because you just don't know what to expect. I'd had no jobs. But it was like a really hard recovery.
Really? How so?
You're just kind of, and I documented it in a video, but you just kind of feel, you wake up and like, there's like this pressure on your face. It's numb, but you just feel like you made yourself sick. Like, that's what it feels like. Like, wow, I made myself sick. And then you have all these feelings of regret, even before you see yourself, because you just feel like, I'm a healthy person. Why did I do this to myself? And I guess it's very normal to have those feelings. But you go through that for a few days until you feel better. And then, you look crazy. Like, you look like a monster. But then after like 2 weeks, you start to see the light at the end of the tunnel, and you're like, okay, I think it's going to be for the best. And then after a month, because it's a long recovery, there are some facelifts that aren't, and a lot of celebrities get like these other kinds. But
is there a reason you opted for the one that had a longer recovery?
yeah, just because like I don't have to go. Well, I could wait on doing a video, so I could do the recovery. The other kind is it's a little bit more. It's the endoscopic kind. The other kind of facelift is less cutting of skin and more endoscopic. And I felt like at my age, I did need the cutting of skin, but some celebrities get the other kind. And see, it's kind of sorted, but like there are celebrities often allegedly tend to get like procedures where it's very subtle and they can redo them, but they do a little bit at a time. This happens often. For me, I'm not going to do that. I don't want to do like a bunch of surgeries to get subtle effects. So yeah, I just wanted like a one and done. After about a month, that's when you feel like, okay, I can go out in public, but it's still very much like, wow, am I swollen? Can people tell? So, but yeah, once you're completely not swollen, not puffy, you do get this like boost, like this surge of like, I don't know what it is, like a high almost. It's almost like a high for a few weeks.
Yeah, I mean, as I said in the intro, like I haven't done a facelift, but I have done various dermatological procedures that have a similar trajectory, like a Fraxel laser or a chemical peel are the kind of thing where you look freaking crazy for several days. Like, and again, I think like part of my frustration is that like even like certain dermatological procedures like just are inherently less stigmatized. Like we're like, oh, it's okay if you want to do this for, because I had acne and I still have acne scars and like rosacea, which is a lot of discoloration. And like, that's okay. You can do that because you're fixing a problem. But like, if you want to do it because you have sunspots, well, that's borderline because that's aging. Or like, what if you want to do it to get rid of fine lines and wrinkles, which a lot of, lasers and peels can do. Like there's such a completely arbitrary standard, but like I did have that same experience of like, not only was it like there was a period where I was like, oh my God, this is horrible. I can't believe I did this. But there was that similar feeling of like, wow, this is like, and I don't have great skin now, but I definitely have massively improved skin from when I was younger. And there was that similar feeling of just like, this is amazing. And I felt like more like myself. I felt more confident. I felt more like, especially someone who's on 4K camera every friggin' day, like, happier with it. And it really like, I cried actually. I've cried multiple times in my dermatologist's office, but like, I really cried once from this feeling of like, because I happen to have enough financial privilege to have gotten some of these dermatological procedures, I was able to realize benefits that I never would have been able to realize it with literally years of a good skin routine. Like they can change it overnight. And like all of these celebrities who have this gorgeous glowing skin, like they're doing these procedures regularly. Like this is totally like an everyday thing for them. And it just is so frustrating that we continue to like make it about how disciplined you are when it's really about like, no, you could literally treat your skin like trash, but go in and get like, and have like a dedicated team of like facialists and dermatologists who will make you look great.
Yeah, 100%. Your skin looks really, really good.
Oh, thank you.
Very nice.
I'm wearing makeup. Thank you.
No, but still, I don't think that the makeup would lay so nicely if the underneath wasn't good. Can I just ask you really quickly, what was like the best like bang for your buck skin treatment you got?
So I would say probably the best. So the Fraxel I had higher expectations for. I wasn't like overly thrilled because I've heard a lot of really good write-ups about it, and I just didn't feel like it was and it's expensive. So I was like, bang for buck factor, no. But so have you done a V-beam laser?
Yes,
so
I did.
V-beam is especially for people with rosacea because it's for discoloration. And like I have the kind of skin where like if you touch me too much, it'll be red. Like water makes me red. Yeah. And like I can't laugh or smile or do anything without like my whole face like blooming red. And like it definitely still is the case, but it's like, I would say like at least like a 30 to 40% reduction in just like the redness from a few V-beam sessions.
Wow.
So that was huge. I think I did total 3.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Yeah, it looks really good. I didn't have like that great of results from it, but I've never tried Fraxel. I'm just wondering if maybe I should Go for it.
I mean, I think the thing about lasers that are nice and non-invasive skin procedures that are nice is like the worst you're likely going to do is lose money, and it is a lot of money. And I want to be clear that like this is not something that everyone should expect to be able to put in their budget. But if it is something that you can't afford, one thing I will never ever make the mistake of again, and I've talked about this on the channel, like I used to spend so much money on high-end skincare,
Yes.
and be like so frustrated that I wasn't getting the results. I literally will never ever again do that. Like basically every single thing I have is from the drugstore for skin products, like moisturizer, cleanser, like all that stuff is from the drugstore. And I will rather invest that money into dermatology. And a lot of it is covered by insurance because of acne and rosacea. But even the stuff that's not, I'm like, I would much rather like save up and go to like get an actual procedure for that than like lose my mind trying to get like fancy products to work.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah.
So when it comes to, so like I mentioned the Ozempic thing. So for those at home who may be lucky enough to not know what's going on in like the celebrity beauty phenomenon right now, can you talk a little bit about what's happening?
The Ozempic thing. Yeah, so all the GLP-1s, which it's something you take usually if you are pre-diabetic or have diabetes, and it helps to control your insulin. And I know that these medicines have been around for a little while. And in people who don't need it, who are thin, they tend to help them lose weight really quickly. So a lot of celebrities, influencers, and public figures are taking diabetes medication. Although I should say there's Wegovy, which is meant just for weight loss, which is a similar medicine as Ozempic. So they're taking these medicines to lose weight.
And why is that? Like, because I think even people who are just like sort of peripherally aware, like have seen like that this is now sort of a big trend in Hollywood and like in New York, I'm sure as well. And like, can you explain a little bit about what the sort of trend is right now?
So the trend to look really thin.
Yeah, like is that something like, because obviously we had like, you know, there was a very long era where it was like being curvaceous was like the most aspirational thing. Like how long do you feel that this has been going on? Like where do you feel that it's kind of heading?
So I wonder if this started with the Kardashians getting thin.
Probably.
I hate to say that, but I wonder if that's where it kind of bloomed. It didn't start, thin has been in for a long time, trigger warning, but I feel like we all understand that to be true because it's pushed on celebrities. So it kind of gets watered down to the rest of us. Now it's kind of bloomed again with Kim losing a lot of weight. It looks like there are people in my audience who say that the Kardashians now look normal. Like they don't look overly skinny, but to me, they look pretty thin.
Yeah. Also, like you really don't realize how thin a lot of these people are when you're seeing them on camera. That cannot be overstated. Like every like actress I've ever met in real life looks way thin compared to what you would think.
Yeah, even the actresses that are quote unquote curvy, when you see them in real life, they're like they're maybe they're curvy, but they're so thin. It's insane.
Yeah, and that is something that I think a lot of people really don't realize when you're watching film and television. Everyone is so thin in Hollywood that they look normal compared to other thin people, but then you see them in real life, and that is another area of like, I didn't really get into it in the celebrity gaslighting video as much because I think it can be really treacherous territory to talk about weight in any capacity, and I do want to be really sensitive when I talk about it. But like, so we have, I think, in America, like a more prevalent culture of lying about cosmetic procedures than other countries, and not all, but like some other countries. Like I know cosmetic procedures are also really popular in Korea, for example, and other cultures. So there is that, but like America is definitely like, that's one area in which we're really, I think, deceptive and pushing a really unsustainable image on young women and girls, especially. I go back to my grandmother who died a size 2 after having 6 kids. That, I mean, all love to her, rest in peace. She was my icon, but she was smoking like 2 packs a day and like wasn't eating and would like have cabbage soup. And that was the reality of being that size. And I think we do in America, I think it was worse in the 90s. It's coming back now. Like there is this culture now where like you have to look at these people who are maintaining these very, very low body weights and sort of take their word for it that they're just like having fish and vegetables. It's mind-boggling.
You know what? That's a really good point. I can't believe your grandmother. Oh my
You like, I have to get like pull up a picture. She was such an icon.
Wow. Yeah, that's insane. A size two. Okay, that's a really good point that I didn't mention about Ozempic is that it's helping celebrities to also not just feel full longer. So this medicine makes you feel like after you eat a meal, you just don't want your stomach doesn't empty immediately. So you just feel full for a lot longer than if you weren't on it. So if celebrities say that they lost weight from diet and exercise, I mean, maybe some of them did, but a lot of them are being helped by it because, yeah, truth, they lost weight through not eating as much, but it's because the medicine helped them not eat as much. And I don't want to be promoting the medicine. That is not what I'm trying to do. I'm just trying to say that if you see a lot more thin celebrities than you normally do, it may be because they're on this medicine.
And let's not forget, like before that, like phentermine and Adderall and Vyvanse and all that stuff is so common. And to not be promoting Ozempic, I have someone very close to me who actually did need it and was made violently ill by it. Like it has a ton of really underreported side effects. I'm going to link in the description to a recent Atlantic article about how really unsustainable this is for people. Also, important to note that as with many drugs that effectively work by suppressing appetite, which is obviously the most common method to use medication to help lose weight, it stops working when you stop taking it. Like your appetite returns, and like you're no longer digesting in this way, or you're no longer having your appetite suppressed by amphetamines or whatever it might be. So there's basically a perpetual cycle where you either have to constantly be doing it, or like we'll sometimes look at celebrities who go through cycles of weight loss and weight gain, and it's like, yeah, because it's inevitable, because they're trying to maintain something that their body's not meant to do.
And yeah, I'm sure a lot of the celebrities you see yo-yoing probably were on different weight loss methods like, phentermine and now Ozempic. And also you have to pay out of pocket if you're thin to take Ozempic. So it's extremely expensive, upwards of like $1,000, if not more, for a month's supply.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I'm interested to know, so before we have some audience questions I want to go through quickly. I can't get to all of them. We got so many, but I'll do as many as I can. Where do you personally find that how do you avoid conflating what genuinely brings you happiness and confidence and makes you feel better versus doing something to appeal to a standard that's not even your own?
That's a really good question. I feel like when I go on camera, that is not what I look like in normal life.
Really?
And yes, like I am trying to dress up for you guys. Like I'm trying to look good, honestly. Like I'm always surprised if I get recognized in real life, because I'm like, really? Because I don't, I do look wildly different. Mainly because I have no time because of like kids and like this career. But yeah, if I had time, like I used to have time before YouTube and before being a mom, then yeah, I would like your outfit today is like awesome. And I would, yes, if I used to wear stuff like that.
Oh, yours is awesome too.
Well, no, but it's only for today.
I also have a run in my stocking from this morning, which I'm like, can't stop thinking about it. It's all I've thought about since this morning. It's ruining my day. No, but I think, it's interesting. Like I don't know. I think that what I really sometimes get a little bit like hot under the collar about is that I sometimes feel like there are certain, like women are in such an impossible position in terms of like, you're supposed to look beautiful, but as if you never tried. And like trying makes you be vain and have low moral character and like all of this other stuff and makes you vapid and superficial. But yet if you genuinely don't try, like it's like that whole thing about no makeup. Like a lot of people don't realize what people actually look like when they're just like rolling out of the house. But like if you do that, then you look a mess and get it together. And it's like it feels like oftentimes there's no winning,
Yeah. You know what? I think that what I like to do is at least put on foundation and then maybe some lipstick and then I'm good. That's my standard right there. Because other than that, if I had more time, yes, I would do the full thing. And when I do the full thing, I feel better. And it's probably because I'm weighing how other people see me. And the foundation is just the bare minimum where it's like they won't be scared. I won't scare little kids.
Oh, I'm sure you would not. I'm a brows, lips, lashes girl. Like I just never leave the house. Like I just can hear my mother in my head. Like put a little lip color on. You look washed out. But anyway, also I do want to share like that no matter what, as I pull up these audience questions, your personal level is, like, I think all of them are great and I want everyone to feel exactly as they want to feel. And if you're someone who prefers full glam or prefers like completely bare face, like, you know, sweatpants and a t-shirt or whatever it is, like, I just think it's really important to do the exercise of like, and sometimes people could even benefit from like journaling. Like, how do I feel today? How do I like, do I feel confident? Do I feel comfortable? Do I, you know, because I think a lot of people genuinely don't even necessarily know what is for themselves.
That's true too. Yeah, that's true too. I do. Ooh, it's kind of like, it's a little bit messy, but after 40, you kind of realize how much stuff we do for the male gaze. And it's like, wow, like that's a whole can of worms where you're kind of going, am I doing this to look good for men or for myself? And that's a whole other thing.
I want to say one thing about that, and this is very important. And I just want to like, I love my husband. I do like to look nice for my husband. I very much pay attention to the way I look around him because I also like him. And he's very into, he presents himself very well. But I go way more out of my way to look nice and get a cute look together when I'm going to be with, like, I work with all women or when I'm going out to meet a girlfriend for dinner.
True.
Like, I feel like it's,
true.
I care so much more when I'm going out with girls because they actually notice things and it's fun.
They do notice things. That's actually true too. I wonder how that would be an interesting video, like how much we do for like to look good for our girlfriends too. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the female gaze, like, it's often like when you're wearing something like funky and interesting that girls will be like, oh, I love that.
Yes, it's great to get that kind of attention because it's not there's no malicious intent usually.
Exactly. Also, a lot of straight men just have no taste, so I'm like, I don't want to be dressing for that. Ooh, okay. So getting into the audience questions real quick. So have any potential sponsors ever not wanted to work with you because you speak candidly about celebrities and have faced backlash?
Not so much the celebrities, but more a lot of skincare and beauty brands don't want to work with me because I talk about plastic surgery.
Yeah. Could you, because I know I have been familiar, and I have to say, you have a really great community because I've seen a few celebrities take issue with something that you've said about them, and you always go out of your way to say, like, this is speculation, blah, 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 blah. But your community is also really wonderful about defending you.
They're so great. I love them.
What do you think the role is of preventative beauty and aging treatments?
It's hard because I've heard a few surgeons say this and dermatologists too, that there's really no such thing as like preventative Botox. I started getting Botox when I was 23 just right here because I didn't like how I looked when I did the 11, like the frowny face. And that did seem to prevent me needing it down the road. Like I feel like I don't need as much Botox now, but I don't know that you can really prevent. I think the best prevention is a good sunscreen for people who are sensitive to the sun. Most people are. I think that's the best prevention.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
What are the most common procedures celebrities get done and lie about?
Rhinoplasty, cheek implants. I don't think anybody's ever admitted to cheek implants, and probably like a facelift.
You think cheek implants are common?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. Yeah. Can you talk about that? Like, what's the deal?
So like I knew about that way back in the day from, I don't know, a lot of people aren't young enough to remember this, but there is like a movie called Doc Hollywood. Have you ever heard of it? Mm-mm. It was, I think, Michael J. Fox. And it's a true story about this plastic surgeon who moves to Hollywood and then like starts working on a bunch of people. Anyway, that surgeon's name was Dr. Stephen Hoffman, and he made a lot of the Hollywood faces like we know and love today. And he would always use cheek implants and things like that to make the Hollywood face. Like that was pretty standard. Like I kind of learned about that, and it's very common. Some of the best implant, like there's one implant doctor, I think he's still working, but some of the best implant doctors were in the LA area who, you know, a lot of these faces were, they don't make the whole face, but like the cheek implants, like that's a very standard Hollywood look for.
Yeah, I was like always, I used to be so naive. I was like, wow, every celebrity has such high cheekbones. It's like, no, they don't.
Not all of them. I mean, like, I
Some of
think
them do.
Margot Robbie. Yeah, no, no. I'm saying like not all of them are fake. You know, like Margot Robbie. I think her cheeks are real. You know.
Totally. Like they like and it also like it adds such like scaffolding to your face to like
Does yeah,
support the rest of your skin and keep things like drawn up. But it really can go overboard.
yeah.
And you get that Waylon and Madam look. Okay. Botox for migraines, fact or crap?
No, yeah. It can help a migraine. It really can.
Yeah. I also got my masseter Botox and I haven't ground like and I don't like so I got injections of Botox into my jaw to stop from grinding my teeth with anxiety, and you do stop because you literally can't grind your teeth anymore. I haven't really noticed that it's changed the shape of my face at all. Like I've been pretty vigilant about like looking at pictures. Some people I was worried. I was honestly very worried that it was going to really change the shape of my face because sometimes it really
It
does.
does.
And
Yeah.
I'm more convinced now than ever that it's because those people are overdoing it. Because if you just do it, like, so my current plan is to do it like once every 2 years. Because I don't want to totally weaken the muscle that it like starts to like
Yeah.
really thin out and change. But there is genuinely, if you're someone who grinds teeth, if you have like frequent, stress reactions and headaches and things like that because of it, like it really can completely change the game.
It can. And a lot of the people whose face it really changes is because their masseters got huge from the grinding. Like you
Totally.
see people with a square, very square jawline who it goes completely down for them, which can be nice. I think both looks can be good.
Totally. I think it's also just like know your face structure and like don't, do anything that's gonna like because also people just really underestimate how much it's like you change this and then this looks weird and then this looks weird and.
Yes.
Okay. If I want to maintain my looks well into my 50s, what should I be budgeting for?
Like what amount or what
I think what
procedures?
things.
Definitely facelift. And like Botox, blepharoplasty. I think it would be important to talk about costs because like a good facelift is probably between 15 and 25,000. I'm trying to think of what are the costs for like mainstream middle America. Yeah, probably like 15,000. But if you want to go like high end, then 30,000. And then Botox. I'm assuming they already started it. Or blepharoplasty. So Botox, blepharoplasty, facelift,
Yeah.
or neck lift. I'm like, I don't want to say anything else because people are gonna freak out. But yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think, yeah, like I can't stress enough. Like I'm lucky enough to have a few people in my life who got a tasteful facelift and were very honest about it and like looks really good when you get it right. Like it's crazy.
Oh yeah. Did they say how much it was?
Well, okay, so one of them in New York, I believe it was $36,000. LA was a little less, and then someone in a more suburban area, it was about 28, maybe.
Okay, yeah, that's
It's
right.
all out of pocket, financed. Two of them financed. I think one paid out of pocket,
Yeah.
like totally cash. Yeah, I mean, but okay, so for reference though, like I just redid my kitchen. I didn't even change out the cabinetry or the appliances, and it was about, I think it was all told $18,000,
Yeah.
which included some issues with plumbing that were unexpected, which added several $1,000s onto it. But like just changing the floor in my freaking tiny New York City apartment kitchen was $5,000. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
stuff is expensive.
Stuff is expensive.
Like, so, and I'm not saying that like you're better off getting a facelift than redoing your kitchen. Like, that's a completely arbitrary, it's apples and oranges. But I'm just saying, like, people are like, life is expensive.
Yeah, it is.
Okay. I've seen a lot of tear trough fillers specifically go wrong. What's the key to a good result?
I'm not so sure. So this is not like medical advice, but I don't know that I would like say get it. Tear trough filler. Gosh, okay. Why do people get it? Because the volume, they've lost volume. Usually it's because
It's like
the
under
fat.
here?
Yeah, I'm just trying to. I'm scanning my brain. So usually, okay. I don't know for sure, but this is what I think. That the fat has slipped down. So you want to see an oculoplast who will lift the fat back up to its rightful position. So you're not filling it with filler, which who knows when that will, like you're going to keep putting filler in your face. That's probably not a good thing. Better to reposition that fat pad back where it's fallen.
Okay. On that note, what is filler creep and how can we avoid it?
Okay, here's what it is. Filler creep is like, in my opinion, when you just keep putting filler in your face and like you don't even realize how big your face has gotten. So and a lot of that filler will stay in and won't dissolve. So what you want to do is never put filler in your face to create features you don't have. So don't put filler to create cheekbones. That's what implants are for. Maybe you can do it once just to see if you like the look of it, but filler and implants are different. So if you need volume to an area continuously to create a feature that you don't have, don't use filler for that. Use implants or go speak with a doctor and see if you're a good candidate for either implants or some kind of bone surgery. Some people need actual bone jaw surgery. So yeah.
I have had exactly one syringe of hyaluronic acid filler, which I got in a very, so that's, for context, an extremely small amount when spread out over the face. But I got it in a few very strategic places because after losing weight, I had essentially hanging skin. I mean, when I tell you that, like, literally everyone in my life was like, what? Like, we would have never noticed this, but I literally burst into tears. I was like so excited and happy. I was like, this is amazing. And I am extremely cautious about it. Like, I did a ton of research before I did Voluma. And I was like extremely cautious about, where I went to and like what I did and like all that stuff. And I'm going to be extremely conservative about how often I redo it because of that. I think is also a big issue is that like people do it very frequently. It also migrates, like it's a whole host of issues, but I will say, like, I feel confidently that issues like that, like, if you have like very, very minor corrections that like they're not artificial because it's like I did lose weight and that did make skin hang, but it's not like I'm like, oh, I'm changing the appearance. It's just like, and those are where I have personally, and I've also seen other people in my life be really, really happy with the results. And it doesn't look at all like no one in my life, I think, would ever guess that I did it.
Yeah. And
but I feel great.
Oh, that's the most important thing. But also, like, I feel like you're more confident too when you feel that way, regardless of if people see it or not. But also, you used it in a way that it was meant for, just to fill volume deficiencies. And also, you can use it in your lips. Someone can use it in their lips to fill volume that way. I know people are going to ask that question because there is no really good substitute for lip filler. So yes, you could create an upper lip or a lower lip that you don't have. But past that, you'll still get filler creep that way too because it can migrate out your lips too. So you need a good injector too.
We had an interview with a dermatologist here, but my dermatologist that I go to, and the dermatologist we had, like, both said like very clearly that a huge percentage of their work is just correcting bad like med spa injections.
That makes sense, yeah.
Which can literally be potentially life-threatening depending on what you're doing and where you're going. What treatments give you the most bang for your buck to avoid needing surgery?
Gosh, that's a good question. So there's nothing that I know of that, like, there's no non-invasive treatments that can substitute surgery because once you need to remove excess skin, there's no treatment that can shrink your skin that I know of that won't remove facial fat from your face. So you can't substitute treatments for surgery.
That is my one opinion that I've done enough research now to say it's like I didn't do it. I opted away from doing it. But when I was looking at options to replace volume loss for slight skin sagging, I guess, one of the options presented to me was Thermage, which is like a treatment that is like basically like, it's kind of like a laser, I guess. Is it a laser?
It heats up your skin basically.
Okay. Well, suffice to say, it's supposed to theoretically be like it tightens your skin that way. And in doing my research, I found like basically no one who was like, this was worth it because it's very expensive. Yeah. So I think all that kind of stuff that like promises the results of surgery without surgery is like, or, injections is often like kind of a scam a little bit.
It is. And I think people spend a lot more money doing those things than just saving up for like the procedure.
Yeah. Thermage was going to be $3,000. I was like, no.
Yeah. And there's a whole industry built on like catering to people who are scared of surgery. And it's kind of predatory in a way because it's probably better just to get over like your fear of surgery, then to spend like hundreds of thousands of dollars on these procedures just so you don't have to have surgery and it's minimal results.
Do any of the cellulite treatments actually work, and how long do they last?
I don't know for sure, but I don't know for sure. I don't. Because I've never had that, and I don't know anyone close to me who either does it, like a surgeon or someone who's had it. So I can't speak intelligently on that.
Nor I. And I, one of the many women who does have some, and but I'm just like, I have limits. I can't be spending all that money to have a perfectly smooth thigh.
Yeah, me too. I have it, and I just rather just go spray tan myself.
Exactly. I'm like, I use Jergens Natural Glow. It's like $10 at the drugstore, and it works really well. I just don't have. Yeah, no one cares.
No one cares.
Okay. Two more quick questions. What is with the fox eye everyone has now?
So they're trying to create something that I've talked about before. It's kind of controversial, but they're trying to create the look of a long eye, and a long, horizontally long eye is something that it's like a beauty landmark. My mentor talked about it. I have like a mentor she's a lot older, and she studied a lot of art and went to Harvard and MIT, and she's talked about the long eye, and a lot of celebrities have a long eye. And so when someone doesn't have a long eye to create that look, they're using the fox eye surgery, which is a lateral canthoplasty, where they cut here and then they pull up on the eye and it elongates the eye. You can opt for getting the eye angled up or not, or you could just have a neutral tilt. Some people get the eye angled up, like Bella Hadid did, allegedly. So yeah, it's like a trend. I mean, a real long eye, it looks like a real long eye, but it's not an actual real long eye, because for that you have to have the bone structure to have long eyes. And this is just mimicking the look of a long eye.
So the last audience question, and you don't have to answer if you don't want to, but
Okay.
Who do you think is the most dishonest celebrity about their procedures?
I can't answer that because I feel like it could potentially be slanderous for me to answer, but I don't know. I feel like you guys all know there's a group of women who need to be more honest about their surgery.
There are so many of them that I'm just like, it really blows my mind that they like, I'm like, how do you guys even look people in the eye and say that you didn't do anything? Like, it's so crazy to me. And I honestly feel like, so people have come for you before saying basically that it's like, and I feel really passionately about this, and I have to say it, like basically saying some version of like, it's not cool to assume that other people have had procedures done, even though in a lot of cases, like you're talking about things that are extremely obvious. And you always do go out of your way to say like, this is your speculation, this is your best guess. But I actually think the opposite is true. I think like for our own mental health as like normal non-celebrity people, it's actually way healthier to assume that they're all getting stuff done and that they're all lying about it. And that if they're not getting actual surgical procedures, that they're probably getting injectables, facials, lasers, peels, all that kind of stuff. So they might as well. Like, it's already completely out of the realm of possibility. And it's way better to compare yourself to that than the perception that they didn't.
Yes, 100%. I think it's way healthier to assume, because I cannot stress to you guys enough so much that like when I get into the weeds with figuring out if a celebrity has had surgery and how much, it's always more than I ever thought. You know?
Yeah.
Always more. Like where I'm going like, oh, I'll be done. I'll tell my husband and kids, or my child. I'll tell my husband and my son, I'll be done today with this video, and I won't be done for 2 days because I'll find so many more procedures than I would have ever guessed. And it's insane because I'll even believe a celebrity when they say they haven't had anything, but I'll just make sure, and then I'll see so much more than I ever thought that they'd had done. So it's better to assume that celebrities have had many things done because it's generally true.
It is very generally true. And it's also like men are not exempt from this. Like we've talked before on the channel about how like almost every one of your favorite superhero actors is on some kind of a like steroid supplement. Like they're on cycles. Like, believe me, these men in their mid 40s are not just suddenly transforming into Adonises because they ate a bunch of chicken breast. And like they also have like full-time trainers and nutritionists, all of this stuff. So point being, like, it's better off and safer and better for mental health to assume that they're all getting stuff done and lying about it, is my opinion.
Yes, and a lot of the male, like especially like the superhero actors, have had like jaw implants allegedly, and I can really see it.
Yes, they have. Yeah. One of them, there's a British actor who his face is completely different and he has like a really sharp jawline now. Yeah. He looks so like masculine. No, not him. It's
Oh, yes. I've gotten his photo sent to me a few times. Yes.
And we'll beep the name out, looks like a completely different man, and he looks great, but like he obviously got a jaw implant amongst many other things, and that's not even touching all of the men. And like it's completely the norm for men in Hollywood to have hair transplants, like, and be on probation their whole lives and all of that stuff. But like all of this is a lie. Like I don't know what people are doing. And like someone on Twitter had like shared a before and after of that actor being like, wow, someone had a glow up. And like another person was like, that's a weird word for jaw implant. And then a bunch of people got mad at that person and were like, how dare you assume what he's had? And it's like, what are we, children? Like we can't acknowledge what's in front of our eyes. It's infuriating to me.
Yes, I agree. It should be okay to say that. But yes, a lot of them have had that. And, you know, even like Tom Cruise, I did a video on him and it's undeniable, allegedly, because you could see the changes with your eyes.
Of course. Yeah. I've mentioned this several times on my own show, but if you go onto YouTube and search the wedding of David Foster and Yolanda Hadid from 2011, you will see Bella and Gigi in the crowd in the background, and Bella's face is completely unrecognizable. It's probably the only surviving video of her original face. And she probably even at that time already had a few things, but like you can't look at that video and be like, she's only had a nose job.
Yeah.
There's no way.
Yeah. And she's had, I mean, it looks like there's been some jaw surgery, which can radically change your face. But that's not all, obviously. But
listen, Yolanda Hadid walked into that surgeon's office and slammed a picture of Carla Bruni in 1992 on that table. And she was like, this. And he did a great job.
Yeah, she looks a lot like her. Yes.
She really does.
Yeah, she does.
And listen, she looks great, but and I think one of the best, to like end on this note, I think one of the best comparisons that people ever made was like when you're talking about men getting hair transplants and jaw surgery and women getting, you know, all these different procedures, like that's gender affirming surgery on some level. Like you are really affirming the way that you want to look. You're affirming your masculinity, your femininity. Like these are, and we have totally normalized it for, you know, cis hetero people, but also we've totally normalized it that we can lie about it as long as it's under a certain level of obviousness. And I do feel like it's really destructive for mental health to not acknowledge the reality of this.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. And I think we're headed towards more transparency. Maybe I'm naive, but I feel like with people starting to admit procedures, maybe it'll happen in the next decade. I hope.
Listen, on these two chairs, you'll always get honesty.
Yes.
That's our promise. Well, Lori, it has been such a pleasure. It was so exciting to finally meet you in person. I've been such a fan for a long time, so.
And yeah, right back at you. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. And obviously, everyone go check out her channel, Lori Hill on YouTube. We'll link it in the description. And I will see you guys all back here next week on an all-new episode of The Financial Confessions. Bye.